All right, we're live. We're live. It's 5. How's everybody doing tonight?
Woo woo.
So cool. All right. Well, so this is the first official test of our live streaming setup. So welcome to the Altitude Homes podcast. So my name is John Hurlbut. I am the CEO of the Altitude Homes team, and this is Jordan Enciso.
Woo.
And he's one of our partner agents here on the team. And so today, really, our goal is to just kind of let you guys ask any of the questions that you might have on real estate. And so we're just going to kind of go through some stuff. And we've got a couple cameras set up in here. So we're going to be playing around with the camera setup. We've got our Roadcaster here, and we've got our A10 Mini. And so, yeah, let's go on and play a little bit. So, Mr. Jordan, let me ask you, what made you get into this crazy business that we call real estate?
Oh man, I heard you can just like make $1 million in one day.
Right? Yeah. So that's kind of the general perception, right? We just we go out and we stick a sign in the yard and collect a big fat paycheck, and nothing happens in between.
Yeah. No, the real big reason was I was tired of the 9 to 5. Ever since high school, I was working at Fred Meyer, working at Fry's in Arizona. Came over, was a pretty good card assistant, pretty good clerk, moved up, became a front end manager pretty quickly. And then I heard you can make a lot of money at Lowe's. Made a lot of money at Lowe's. And then it ended up being 40, 50, 60, 70 hour work weeks, going on and on and on. And then I realized I didn't want to be at Lowe's anymore. And, you know, if I could put my time into something that I actually enjoy, that was the really big thing.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. Most people, when I ask them that question, they're like, well, you know, I really like looking at houses.
Right.
And I mean, I'm guilty of that. Right. So, you know, my wife and I used to go out and look at, you know, houses on the weekend and just kind of, you know, see, like, get some decorating ideas, this sort of thing.
Right.
I got laid off from my tech job at Adobe and sat on the couch and watched Jerry Springer for about a month, and finally told my girlfriend at the time, now wife, said, hey, I'm just going to go on a road trip and kind of figure things out. So I went on a 12-day road trip all the way down to Houston, Texas, went down to the Johnson Space Center, and all the way in between went to a bunch of stuff that I'd never seen before. And in the meantime, tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I called my real estate agent, Mr. Jeff Jensen, also at Keller Williams, was then at Windermere. And I just said, hey, man, I got laid off from my tech job. I think what you do is pretty cool. Can we talk about it when I get back? And
Right.
so we talked about it. I went through the licensing course, got my license, and here we are 19 years later. So, yeah, I honestly couldn't really imagine a better career. So the thing that's funny is you found that you were working 50, 60, 70 hours a week.
Right.
And so I'm sure that you've done a lot less than that now, right? You're down to like 5-10 hours a week now.
Right. Doing well. I mean, I can put as much as I want into it. That's the main thing, is I know it's going back to me rather than like some overtime that I'm getting at a company where I'm like, I don't want to be here.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's the one thing that I really love about real estate. So when I was at my tech job, it really didn't matter, what you did when you were there. If you were there for 40 hours a week, you collected a paycheck. So it didn't matter if you were there playing games on the computer the whole time or, actually kicking butt working. You got paid the same regardless. And so the thing that I love about this career is that you really get out of it what you put into it. So the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I mean, income really is limitless. I think it's a little bit of a myth to say that you really get to control your schedule. You've really got to work kind of at that to be able to get to that point. But once you're established and you're kicking butt, then absolutely you can kind of control your own destiny.
Right.
So cool. All right, let's see. So you worked at Lowe's, and then you also had some pretty interesting jobs too, right?
Yeah. Going all throughout high school, I've always just picked up side jobs. My very first job was a summer job out in the Arizona sun, working about 8 hours a day at a nursery. Thought I wanted to be a botanist. Turns out I didn't want to be a botanist. It's a lot of work.
Once you see one cactus, you see them all.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Once you planted a potato, you're like, wow, this isn't exciting. So doing that, and then throughout high school, I grew this fascination for mascots. And my high school had a mascot, so I was the mascot when I wasn't playing football on the field or doing other stuff, jumping out there with the cheerleaders, pushing down players, having fun. Then I moved on to the city with my mom. She worked for the city of Avondale at the time. And they have this character called Wayne Drop for the city water. So it's literally just a giant fat water drop. Every city had one in Arizona. Shout out all my Arizonians. If you know Wayne Drop.
Arizonians.
And then I've done a few for the Coyotes, going out to some of their games and stuff. So
nice.
I was fairly popular with the mascots.
You're a good skater is what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
When I'm on my butt falling around, I'm a good skater.
Right on. Right on. Cool. Well, let's see. We have a couple of comments here. So someone says, can't hear you. Who can't hear us? Steve Bargeld says, what's up, gents? Hey, Steve, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for joining on. Is anybody else having any issues hearing us? I'm looking at the levels right now, and it looks like things are coming through okay. All right, well, let's kind of jump in, and we had
maybe that we're not close enough because I know these are pretty sensitive.
I don't know. So let's see. Yes, it pops in and out. Go Jordan. I can hear you just fine on YouTube. I can hear you. So okay, cool. I think we're good. So last week we posted saying that yes, we're gonna go live at some point. It took us a little longer. Thanks, Jordan, for pushing me towards this. But
he spent all his money on all these toys. You got to use them.
I am kind of a gear nerd, so yeah, you kind of pushed me to doing this, and I appreciate that. So all right, so we had a few questions come in, and Stephen Wright, our fabulous lender at Movement Mortgage, loaded us up with questions, and I'm assuming that these are some of the questions that Stephen's also getting. So the first question is it still a seller's market? What do you think, Jordan?
That big question. Well, definitely doesn't feel like one if you're looking at the last 4 years. But if you look at the numbers.
So what have you seen? You mostly represent buyers right now.
Right.
You've got a couple listings, but the buyers that you're working with right now, what have you seen that's changed a little bit in the last couple of months as you've been working with those buyers?
Right. Yeah. The big thing is you have a little bit of negotiating room. It's not a ton, but you have some now where you can come in and say, hey, let's knock down the price a bit. Let's get our interest rate bought down. Let's, help us out with some things, not just let me throw all the money I have at you and hope you take my offer.
Right.
That's the big thing.
So I think one of the things that's really kind of scaring buyers right now are those rising interest rates.
Right.
So you just mentioned something that I think is really important that buyers need to know is that the interest rate that your lender quotes you right now may not necessarily be the interest rate that you
Right.
end up with
It changes every day.
because
You can buy down your rate.
you can buy
Changes
down your
every
rate,
day.
right? So tell us about that. How does that work? What happens in that scenario? How do you buy down this rate?
Sure. So some great examples that I've been doing lately is raising up the price slightly, or at least from what their asking price is, and using that cut or that jump as a buy down rate. You get a few grand back, you put it into yourself, and you make a couple $100,000 over the next few years.
Right. Yeah. And so the thing that's really kind of a win-win, and we're always talking about, here at Keller Williams, we have the Y4C2TES now, right? I don't know. We're going to have 72 different things in there. But the first thing, the W, is the win-win or no deal.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that's cool about the win-win or no deal and this idea of buying down the rate is that really it can be a win-win. So for a buyer to save a significant amount on their mortgage by reducing the price of the home, it's probably more than what a seller right now is willing to reduce.
Right.
However, if they pay towards buying the buyer's rate down, it costs the seller far less and saves the buyer as much as they were hoping to save in their mortgage. So we just had a buyer, you just got them under contract, and they were able to buy down the rate, I think, to 3.75.
Yep.
So I don't know who's out there right now that that's dealing with a 3.75 rate.
Right. Unless you bought 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're not getting quoted that rate right
No.
now. So the thing that's cool, and buyers will ask us all the time, well, I'm going to wait till, rates get down to 1%. Well, we can get you a 1% rate. You're just not going to like the cost.
Yeah,
for
right.
that, right. So, but there is this kind of middle ground right now. We're kind of, going back to the question of, are we in a buyer's market or are we in a seller's market? Right now we're in this, what I call messy in the middle market.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And so, what happened is, earlier this year, probably back in April or May, we were pricing homes on this line and we didn't realize that the shift had happened yet.
Right.
We were starting to see inventory creep up just a little bit. And I'll share my screen here in just a second, kind of show you what that looks like. But what really happened is the market was saying that we should be pricing here, but we are still pricing here. Now that we've fully seen that shift, all of those homes that have come on the market at that price probably will either need to drop their price down to what, real market level is, or, come off the market to reevaluate, kind of figure out what their goals are. I was just talking to a client a couple days ago where we were going to list their house in September, and we made the decision to wait until spring because right now the same builder in their neighborhood was dropping prices $50,000. So they feel it as, we just lost $50,000, which really isn't the truth.
Right.
The truth is that we were above market value to begin with, and now we're coming back down to what the actual market value is. And once we get through this messy in the middle, then we'll start to see those prices coming back up. So probably, in 2023, we'll see probably 5 to 7% price appreciation, which is a far cry from the 15 to 20 that we've been seeing the last couple of years.
Pretty good though.
Yeah. I mean, you're not losing money.
No.
That's the thing that's nice. So I happen to be a data nerd. So what you're looking at here is a program that we use called Trend Graphics. And so what I want to show you, and this is all of Pierce County, and most of the counties are doing the same thing. So when we're looking at this graph, this is months of inventory, and the National Association of Realtors would tell us that 0 to 3 months worth of inventory is a seller's market. A balanced market would be 3 to 6 months worth of inventory, and then a buyer's market would be 6+ months worth of inventory. And so one of the questions that Stephen also asked was, number one, are we still in a seller's market? And if you look at this graph, we're at the end of July, we were sitting at 2 months worth of inventory. And if you look at up-to-date stats right now, we're at 2.3 months worth of inventory. And so technically, yes, we're still in a seller's market. My belief is when August numbers come out, we're going to be touching that 3 months worth of inventory.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle, kind of heading towards, a balanced market. And depending on the price range that you're in, all real estate is local. So when you're looking maybe in the higher price ranges and stuff, there might be a little more inventory than the core of where buyers are buying.
Right.
The other thing that blows me away right now is that our average price right now in Pierce County is $635, but you can see that's come down a little bit from a high of $646. So the sky is definitely not falling as far as prices are concerned.
Right, like what the news is saying, where you just lost all your money and it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. So the other question was, when's the last time that we were in a buyer's market? Well, I'll show you. You have to go all the way back to 2011. So if I update this to show the last 15 years, when we had the last market collapse, the absolute bottom of our market was February of 2012. And so the thing about rising prices or falling prices is you don't know when you've hit the peak or the valley until you're past it, right? So in May or so of 2012, I sent out a note to everybody that had bought in February of 2012 to say, congratulations, you guys timed the market perfectly.
Nice.
Right? But I didn't know that until May. But if we look all the way back here to late 2011, early 2012, that's when we were at that 6-month inventory mark. And if you look, back even a few years before that, we were 13.5 months worth of inventory. So when you put that into practical terms that people can kind of wrap their mind around, as realtors, we look at this data and we kind of know how to interpret it. What this means is that if no new homes came on the market, we'd be out of homes to sell in that length of time. So right now we're, right at 2.5 months worth of inventory. So right now, if no new homes came on the market, we'd be out of homes to sell in about 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now go back a couple of months and we were at 0.4 months worth of inventory. So if no new homes came on the market, we'd be out of homes to sell in a little over a week. Right. So yeah, we are experiencing a shift. The last buyer's market was back in 2011, and we are still technically in a seller's market, although I think we're going to be in a balanced market here very soon. So let's see.
Yeah, and just going off of that, one thing I wanted to bring up that we haven't been able to talk about for the last few years, absorption rate.
Right.
It's below 100%.
Right.
You can actually understand it now.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody what absorption rate is?
That's the question in mind. What is absorption rate? It's just with the last few years, you've looked at the graphs or just looked at housing inventory, and you've seen that more houses are selling than what's out there. And you're like, well, how does that work?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. There's not enough inventory. Well, luckily we've had homes come on. It's all just math. But now we're starting to see that absorption rate get eaten. Just today, we're at a 45% over here in Washington.
Yeah.
Other states are sitting about 30, 40. You still, again, with the seller's market, you have to be at 16 or lower.
Right. Yeah. So. And so when you think about absorption rate, yeah, the reason that people's heads would explode is, so if you're at 100% absorption rate, that means that every home that comes on the market is selling.
Right.
But when you're at 400% absorption rate, they're like, well, wait a second, how are 4 homes selling for every one that comes on the market?
Right.
So I just stopped showing that chart, right? Because people's minds explode. So they say that it's the inverse of months of inventory. Mm-hmm. But again, people that aren't strong in math, it just makes their head explode. So I didn't show that chart for a long time, and I've put it back in my listing presentation now. So cool. Let's see, any other comments? No comments coming in. And so Next question that we had, are inspections a necessary step? So that's also from Stephen Wright.
Oh man, it's my favorite one.
All right.
It's the best step. I mean, with inspections, the big thing is understanding what an inspection and an appraisal is. A lot of people get those confused, or they say, "Oh, it's the same thing. If I'm having my home inspected, I'm having it appraised, or vice versa." Um, but going off of it, your inspection is your buyer beware. That's you going in. Here's all your problems. Do you still want it? And that's a great point to have. It is you get that option, especially nowadays as we're talking. You have more options as a buyer even though it's not a complete buyer's market. This is where you have options. You
Right.
get to walk away or you get to go forward and you get to ask for things like, hey, can you fix this? You know, we don't want to move on until this is done. We don't want to keep going unless you drop the price for us. Or, hey, can you help us out with some credits? Because we need to change an electrical panel.
Does that happen?
So just going back a few months ago, it was either you're waiving the inspection or you're just having it just because you want to know what's wrong with the place.
Right.
Nowadays, you get to have it because you want to know what's going on, and maybe you get a little wiggle room on that.
And so when you do have an inspection, is the seller obligated to fix everything that you find?
Yeah, right. You could hand them everything in the sheet and they could, ignore you. They can tell you to F off and get out of here. We're not doing nothing, walk away. And that's totally an option for them. Obviously, if they sign the agreement with you, they kind of want to work with you even a little bit, which I've noticed most sellers are like, oh, because it's their home.
Yeah.
They don't want to see bad things happen to it, even though they're not going to live there. But they still want to see a good person get in and know that they're not getting screwed over on either end.
Right. And yeah, like I always tell people, it's not your opportunity to get the home upgraded. Right. So if you walk in and there's Formica counters, you can't say, oh, well, we found out that there's Formica counters on the inspection.
I need
so
granite.
Right. Or now quartz is the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try and focus on the things that are safety issues. A lot of the times, also we'll counsel our buyers too, rather than having the seller fix it, because they're going to find whoever does it the cheapest, the soonest, right? Maybe it's better to ask for a credit in lieu of that, or, so that you can hire the person that you want to do the job and that they're working for you.
Right.
So the inspection is for the buyer to kind of figure out what it is that they might want done or corrected on that. So what's the appraisal? What's the difference?
So with your appraisal, it's a third party going in. That's your bank. That's the person you're getting your money from. So when you get a loan, you're getting pre-approved for that amount. The bank also wants to make sure that the house you're getting is worth it. They don't want to
the hose.
And the house. They want to make sure that what you're buying is worth it. Because if they walk in and you're like, hey, here's this $500,000 deal, but they're like, yeah, we'll give you 100 for it.
Right.
So they want to cover themselves. And that's what the appraisal is. They'll do their inspections, their little peekaboos, but they're not going to tell you about it. They're just going to go, yeah, the loan's approved, or get out of town, Jack.
Yeah. And they're also mostly going to look for, safety items, things like that. They'll peek at the roof, and if they don't think that there's 5 years left, they'll call something like that out. If there's rotten floorboards or something, like those are the things that they're mostly looking for. And you shouldn't use the appraisal as your inspection. Right. So it's really, if the bank has to foreclose on you, then they want to make sure that they can get the money back out of the home that they've lent you on it.
Okay. It's your house, but it's their asset.
Yeah. And I think the beauty thing right now is that right now the buyers are able to take back some of that control that they haven't had for the last couple of years, and be able to do that inspection and get some of those things that might be high priority items corrected by the seller. So this is the fun question.
Oh man.
What's the process for buying and selling a home at the same time?
It's impossible.
It's impossible. It's definitely challenging. So what are some of the things, and really coming out of the market that we just came out of, some of the things that sellers were worried about is, hey, my house is going to sell in 4.2 seconds, and I might have to throw out offer after offer after offer to try and get into something. So how am I going to avoid being homeless? So for a while, we were doing some things like 30, 60-day rent back, so the seller could stay in their house, be able to make a non-contingent offer on something. And now, we're really not having to do a lot of that stuff,
Mhm.
right? So even on, our transaction right now where we've got, a seller, we had put that in the listing remarks that they would prefer a 30-day rent back. And it turns out that we didn't need it because we were able to get a contingent offer accepted for
Right.
them, which is something that we haven't been able to really do
In a while.
in the last few years either, is get an offer. So when we say a contingent offer, we mean, an offer that's contingent on the sale of the buyer's home. So we were able to get one of those accepted. We were
Mhm.
able to actually get that term negotiated to longer than what the seller actually wanted.
Right.
And those buyers were able to get their points bought down. They were able to do an inspection and get some things corrected on the inspection. Not everything, but
Right.
but they were able to get some things done. So, what are some other tactics that we've used in order to help people sell and buy at the same time?
Oh, a great one right now is looking at contingent homes. Well, there's a lot of agents out there who don't even know to look at contingent homes
Right.
because they don't know the process. They don't know the clauses. They just go out and they look at homes and they hope you buy one.
Yeah. So what you're saying is all agents aren't created equal.
No, right?
That's weird. You would think that everybody in the same industry would have all the same information
Right.
and do all the same things, but Pareto's principal rules in real estate as well. So, okay, so yeah, some other things, right now, probably the thing going forward is we're going to be back to just suggesting throwing out contingent offers because we
Mhm.
are seeing that inventory creep up. If interest rates change at some point in the near future and start to come back down, we'll probably start to see the market heat up a little bit more. But right now, buyers, the word that I'm using for buyers is opportunity,
Oh yeah.
and the word that I'm using for sellers is patience.
Yeah.
Right, because houses do tend to sit on the market a little bit longer than they have been over the last couple of years, and homes that are priced well and show well still will typically sell pretty quickly.
Right.
So we just put a house on the market yesterday in Yelm. We actually listed it for $10,000 less than what we were planning on listing it even 6 weeks ago because the market had shifted
Mhm.
that rapidly. And we've already had, 2 or 3 showing requests on that home. So it's going to be one of the homes that stands out in that community as a bargain for buyers right
Right.
now.
And I guess that goes off your favorite question ever. When's the best time to sell, John?
Well, so really, I mean, when you talk about it, people ask me this question all the time. And what I will tell them typically is when you're ready,
Right.
right? It really, what the market is doing has no bearing on whether or not it's a good time to sell. If it's a good time to sell for you, it's a good time to sell. The only thing that I'll do is I like to set expectations so my clients feel informed and they know what's going to happen. So typically, everybody talks about the hot spring market,
Mhm.
with all the inventory coming on and all the sales happening. So when you come on in the spring and summer, you're probably going to have more showings for your home, and fewer of those people are actually going to be interested in buying your home.
Right.
When you come on in the fall and the winter, you're going to have fewer showings, but more as a percentage, more of those people are actually going to be interested in buying your home, especially like between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Nobody wants to move then.
Yeah.
So you know that if there's a home on the market, that person really has to sell. And if there's a buyer looking at that home, they really have to buy.
Mhm.
So you don't lose any bargaining power or anything as a seller or a buyer, depending on when it's happening, because, inventory is controlling
Right.
that.
It's just a natural shift
Yep.
through everything.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. So getting through the Stephen Wright questions. How is housing affected during a recession? So I think the interesting thing on this is that if you look at all of the past recessions since the Fed's been keeping track of recessions,
Mhm.
other than the recession in 2007, that we all are familiar with, 2007 to 2011.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, you were just a baby. So I think you're in grade school.
Yeah.
So really, the thing that's the only time there's been that one, and I can't remember which the other one was, but out of all of the 8 recessions or whatever that we've tracked,
Right.
only twice have home prices actually fallen.
Right.
And typically during a recession, home prices rise
Mhm.
and interest rates fall. So everybody's kind of worried that, oh my gosh, are we going to actually be in a recession? Newsflash, we're in a recession.
Oh no.
Yeah. So
it's over.
So yeah, the official definition of a recession is when GDP falls for 2 quarters in a row, right? We've already had one full quarter, and we're about to finish the second quarter of that here in September, and GDP will have fallen. The thing that makes this recession a little bit different is we're basically at full employment, right?
Right.
So and we're seeing inflation go crazy. So the Fed's jumping in to raise interest rates to try and get inflation under control. There are some signs that maybe that's happening, and it's maybe not happening fast enough. I mean, everybody's paying more at the pump. They're paying more at the grocery store. They're paying more for pretty much everything except houses. Houses are on sale.
Well, going off of that, what's the difference between Fed rates and interest rates on homes?
So that's a great question. When the Fed actually raises, when you see the Fed, they jumped in June and July and, raised it 75 basis points each time. That's really things that you deal with as a consumer, like credit cards and car loans and those sort of things. That directly affects those. For the most part, it does not affect mortgage rates. Mortgage rates really kind of bake that in. They know that the Fed's going to raise rates, so they get ahead of that. The biggest thing that's affected our mortgage rates since December is really this thing called mortgage-backed securities. So what happens when you go to a movement mortgage or whatever, they fund your loan and then they sell it on a secondary market. They package it up with another 100 loans and they call it a mortgage-backed security and they sell that. The biggest buyer of mortgage-backed securities for the last few years has been the federal government. And so in December, they announced that not only are they going to not buy mortgage-backed securities anymore, they're going to start selling off what they had. So that introduced volatility into the mortgage market. And so the only way to get investors to buy those mortgage-backed securities is to offer them a higher interest rate. So that's why you've seen interest rates come up for that, is because of that secondary market. So that, coupled with knowing that the Fed's going to raise interest rates, we've seen about a 3% rise since December, and we're starting to see that kind of level out a little bit over the last couple of weeks. We've seen a little bit of a dip here and there. Some people are saying that in December we're going to be seeing interest rates come back down. Other places are saying it could be another 18 to 24 months before we see those interest rates dip back down into the 4s and maybe even 3s.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
So what does that mean for someone like me if I just came in for the first time? What's the difference between 3%? I mean, 3% or 6%? It's just 3%.
Well, yeah. So every time your mortgage rate rises by 1%, you lose 10% of your buying power. Okay. So when we talk about interest rates raising 3%, that means buyers have lost 30% of their buying power. To put that in perspective, let's say that in December, somebody was looking at a $600,000 home. The mortgage payment they were comfortable with on that $600,000 home is now on a $400,000 home.
And in such a hot market out here, you have home prices that already start in the 5s.
Right. Yeah. So when you start showing people $600,000 homes and then they find out they can only afford $400,000 homes, what they're seeing in the $400,000 price range is vastly different than what
it's in a different county.
600. Right. Yeah. So maybe even a different state. Yeah. And so, so that's really kind of what's put the cooling effect on our market, is just that a lot of buyers have just kind of gone back, into the shadows, kind of waiting it out, seeing what's going to happen. The challenge that they're going to have is that we will still see home prices rise. Like, everybody kind of believes that that's what's going to happen. And so the longer they sit on the sidelines, the more expensive that house is going to be. And who knows how long it's going to be before interest rates come down to where they're comfortable. That's why, having somebody like you that can, walk them through the tactics of buying down that interest rate, and it took some conversation with our buyer to have them understand what it is that we were doing.
Where's the money coming from? How is this going to work?
So, they feel like, well, we're paying more for the house. And yeah, you are technically paying more for the house, right? That $15,000 that we added onto the price of the house, we were able to save them a couple $100 a month in a mortgage payment.
And a couple 100 grand over the next 5-10 years, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, interest is a killer. There's a truth in lending disclosure that you'll get when you sign mortgage papers. And I always advise clients, just skip over that, just sign it, move on,
Mhm.
because you'll look at, my initial mortgage was, 340,000, but at
Right.
the end of 30 years, I've paid 800,000 for this house.
Right.
Right. Just skip that one. You don't want to see that one. All right. So I think we've already answered the question, will appreciation continue at its current level? I don't think so. I think probably the next couple of years we're going to see more normal appreciation,
Sure.
5 to 7%.
But I want my 25% every day.
We all
John.
want that too. That's where Bitcoin comes in.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, that's crypto. Those
just-
are all the returns.
Just use code John Hurlbutt. You'll get
right. Yeah.
20.
Yeah. I think who is it? Mark Cuban just got sued because he backed a crypto company.
Oh, that's fun.
And they went bankrupt.
Ah.
So
What?
let's see. Let's display that right there. Great info.
Nice.
Love this. I like it. So we're getting some kudos.
Well, let's start our first YouTube beef, if you don't mind.
Oh, what's the YouTube beef?
Mr. Grant Cardone.
Oh yeah, 10x everything, baby. I will tell you that he just used a little known a tax law, one that I want to use.
Is it the jet one?
It's the jet one.
Oh.
So for all of those of you that are out there thinking about buying your own private plane, did you know that you can write off 100% of the value of that plane in the first year against your income taxes?
How do I do that, John?
As long as the use of the plane is reasonable and customary, and you guys should all speak with the CPA to discuss this in your own personal situation, because we are not tax advisors, because this is going out on the inner tubes and it's going to be there forever. As long as it's reasonable and customary and you're using that plane for at least 50% business, you can write off 100% of the value of that plane in the first year. And the plane that Grant Cardone just bought, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 to $16 million.
Something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, our buddy Grant Cardone says that housing is a horrible investment.
Yeah.
So Grant doesn't live in a house. Is he one of the guys that's in the tent on the side of the road with a private jet?
I think we all wish that.
Oh, he probably lives in the private jet.
Sure. Well, there you go. The big thing is he's not explaining his words to the best of his ability.
You mean it might be clickbait?
Right. So he does live in a house. The difference is he pays himself. And how does he do that? He owns an LLC. So who's he renting from? It's himself.
Right.
He's just paying himself his own mortgage, the same way you would just pay your mortgage to your lender or whoever they're giving you out. But the great thing is I follow this guy, Graham Stephan. I've mentioned you to him. So the difference between, and this is something that Grant brought up, was most people don't see the opportunity cost of buying a house. So, and I agree with that. Most people just see a house, they want to live in it.
Right.
And
you have to live somewhere, right?
Right. The difference is Grant sees that as something he can build off of. And that's what he's built his entire 10X off of, is every penny has to work for you or else it's not going to work for me. The great thing that I thought Graham brought up was I own what I rent rather than saying I rent what I own.
Right.
It's just breaking it down in an easier, even though it's just flip-flopped, but it makes more sense. You're saying, okay, it is still my house. I'm just incorporating it differently, and I'm just kind of taking advantage of the system.
Right. And Grant has an investment club too, right?
Right.
So you can join. And what do they invest in?
Houses,
Real
rentals.
estate.
Yeah.
Right. So it's funny to see, Grant Cardone or Elon Musk, these billionaire guys that are saying, oh, I'd never buy a single family home. And then you've got Warren Buffett on the other side. When we were down in the last downturn, he said that if he could, he'd just buy 100 single family homes every day for the rest of his life,
right.
Because traditionally real estate is a really safe investment. And the thing to think about is that even going through the recessions that we've gone through, where we did have some crazy house prices fall, over time, the average is about 5 to 7% a year.
Right.
Right. And the interest rate, if you're paying 7% on your mortgage right now, oh my gosh, 7%, 8.5 was my first mortgage. Right. So if you're paying 7% right now, if you're renting, what's your interest rate?
Oh man, let me do the math. 100%.
It's 100%, right? Because when you're owning your own single family home, you get a lot of tax benefits
Right.
for that. So even if you're at 7%, your effective interest rate based on the tax benefits that you get is way lower than that. And you can do whatever you want to the house. If you want to put a hole in the wall, you can do that. If you want to move a wall, you can do that. If you want to paint it purple with pink polka dots, you can do that, right? So yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying.
Sure.
And I do believe it's a lot of clickbait, to just try and get people to think more critically about it.
So that they'll move into his rentals.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one thing that you brought up that I think even Graham and Grant didn't bring up was it depends on your market. And this is something that you brought up to me that I never thought about. When you buy into rentals, are you looking to be cash flowing, or are you looking for that extended stay where
you're getting appreciation
on your value? Because you look at these markets like LA, Seattle, where homes are $3, $4, $5 million, and then the rental on them, or just renting it out, it's like 10 grand. Then you do the math on it, and you're like, hey, this guy's only breaking even.
Right.
But really what he's there for is that few $1 million every year that he's going to get.
Right. Yeah. So when I'm advising investors, I'll ask them, what's your investment goal? Are you investing for cash flow, or are you investing for appreciation? And inevitably they're all going to say, well, both.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, great. And you're probably not going to get that in many markets. And if you do get that in a market, you should buy as much real estate as you can in that market.
Let me know where it's at.
Right.
Send me the address.
Yeah, exactly. So, right now, if you're buying a rental in our greater Puget Sound area, you're probably buying it for appreciation. If you can get it to break even or cash flow a little bit, you're doing great. For example, my wife and I, we bought a house during COVID in Chicago and paid $70,000 for the house. It's worth $70,000 all day long.
Nice.
But it rents for $1,250 a month. And after paying our mortgage, our taxes, our insurance, our property manager, water, sewer, that sort of thing, we're still cash flowing, $400 or $500 a month on that. And the way that we set it up, and we can go through that on the next episode, is, really, we had about $4,000 out of our own pocket to now get, about $5,000 a year back in our pockets, for not really doing anything.
Right.
Full disclosure, the house has been shot twice. So, what are contingencies?
Oh, man. Another one of my favorite ones. Well, inspections fall under contingencies.
Yeah.
Selling your own home, like we said, that's a contingent home.
Right.
So it's basically just you're covering yourself. You are in a legal agreement and you need some covering.
Right. Yeah. So the way that I would explain contingencies to a buyer is these are just things that we need to make sure happen prior to closing. And if they don't go the way that we want them to, they could possibly be a way for you to get out of the contract.
Right.
So our most common contingencies are an inspection contingency, a financing contingency. Something's wrong with the house you don't like for whatever reason. You don't like the color of the paint in the bedroom.
Right.
You back out on the inspection, you get your earnest money back. If you lose your job and you can't complete the purchase because of financing, you can back out, get your earnest money back. So really what we're doing is we're protecting the buyer with all of the contingencies that we add into a contract in order to make sure that the house that they're getting is the house that they want.
Right.
So other contingencies might be a septic contingency, a well contingency, a home sale contingency. All of those things we add on. If you look at contracts in other states, we just had a client that moved down to Florida and he's buying a house, and literally the entire real estate contract was 3 pages long. Right. Our purchase and sales agreement starts at 5 pages.
Yeah.
Right. And then we just add contingencies on top of that. So it's not uncommon for us to have, a 14 to 18 page contract at the end of the day. So I always joke with people that whenever somebody gets sued, we get a new paragraph.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my favorite one when I bring up to buyers. I'm writing out the offer, our new purchase and sale agreement. And then I go, okay, so I'm about to send you like maybe 20, 25 pages. Don't just sign it all. Right. Go, 25. I'm like, I'm just joking with you. I'll sit down with you.
Right. Yeah. So here's a non-Stephen Wright question.
Uh-oh.
So Charlotte Sweet writes in and says, what happens to my equity when the market cools?
It's gone.
It's gone
Forever.
right?
I took it.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on this. I think it's, so if we look at what I'm calling the messy in the middle market right now, where we priced on this line and houses should have been at this line, the reality was the house wasn't worth that to begin with.
You never had it, and that's hard to say.
So right now you're not losing any equity. I got accused of quoting Warren Buffett on this. Like, you don't lose anything if you don't have to sell, right? So the only time that you're going to lose in a real estate market is if you have to sell it the immediate time that it drops. So now I know when Charlotte bought her home, because I sold it to her.
Nice.
And the house would have to fall a long ways, longer and further than we had in 2007 to 2012 for her to ever lose any equity, right? So, and the funny thing is when I started practicing real estate 19 years ago, I would tell people that you need to be in your home a minimum of 2 to 3 years just to be able to break even on the sale. Because when you sell your house, it costs between about 7.5% and 8.5% to sell your home. No, that's not what we're charging in commission. The county and state and escrow and title and everybody takes their cut too. So
I'll just use Redfin 1%.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. So you're off the podcast. So, at the end of the day, right now we've had people that have been in their house for as little as 3 months in the last couple of years, and they've been able to sell and get out and actually put some cash in their pocket.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how fast things were rising. We're probably getting back to the point that anybody that's buying now is probably going to have to be in that house for probably 2 years to be able to sell and break even. Right. Because if you figure 5% appreciation over the next 2 years, it's a little more than 10%. Figure 7.5%, 8.5% to sell your house. They're going to come out with some cash. So the short answer is nothing's happening to your equity right now.
Right.
The valuations will change, and we're still going to see home prices continue to rise. So let's see. So one of the brokers in our office even is asking questions. So Tara Maxwell, what are the pros and cons of selling in this market? What do you think? So if you're selling in this market right now, what's a pro?
Well, it definitely depends how long have you been in your home. If you bought your home in the last 5+ years, you're probably going to make a boatload of money no matter what you're kind of sitting on. And if you got a price reduced, then you're still going to probably make. If you bought your home last year, you might be looking a little risky.
Probably touch and go, right? And every situation is different. Depends on where, when, how much you put down, etc.
But again, it goes back to we're still a seller's market. If you need to sell fast, we can sell pretty fast.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Price your house at $12, we'll get multiple offers.
I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Cash in hand.
What about can you think of any reasons not to sell?
Again, it's have you lived in the home for a year? Probably not a good time. Do you have to, or are you willing to stay a little bit longer? Those are good points. Just to, if you're just trying to make a quick buck, just because you heard Fox or CNN be like, yeah, everybody's selling, then probably not the best idea.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, we need to go, then it's a decent time.
Yeah.
It's not horrible.
Yep. So we have a question that came in through the comments. So this is cool. I've seen ads saying they will help you buy a house before you sell. How does that work? So this is interesting because a lot of these companies started coming out in this heated market.
Right.
And so what they do is they give you, consider it like a hard money loan. It's probably somewhere in between a traditional lender and a hard money loan. Right. So a hard money loan, think of as, like Guido that's going to break your legs if you're not going to pay him back. Right. So hard money loan, typically they'll charge you like 3% up front of the loan value. They'll charge you between 12 and 18% interest. It's an interest-only loan. A lot of house flippers will use a hard money loan. So this is not that. And, traditional mortgage, 20% down, right now, 5.5-ish %, right? This is kind of somewhere in the middle. So they're giving you the money to be able to make a cash offer on the house that you want to buy. And obviously they're going to charge you either a fee and or an interest rate on that loan, so that you don't have to go in and make a contingent offer. And so a lot of these started coming to market really 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago as the market was starting to shift.
Right.
So I think if they aren't well capitalized and able to go through the shifting market, you're going to see a lot of those companies probably disappear going forward, because there's not going to be as much a call for it.
Right.
Because right now buyers really don't have to make that immediate offer on a house, and they don't have to necessarily stand out with a cash offer. You're still probably going to have to give up something to the seller if you're going to be contingent on the sale of your house. But what it does is it allows you to make a cash offer on the house that you want to buy without having to sell your house first. Once you're safely in that new home, you put your house on the market, you sell it, you pay off the loan that they gave you to buy the new house, and refinance your house into like a traditional mortgage.
Right. And those lenders typically give you a timeline to sell your home once you get into your new one.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I would think that normally they would give you like 3 months. Maybe they're going to expand that to 6, but that's kind of the basis of how that's going to work. And again, you probably aren't really going to need to use them right now.
Yeah.
Because we're having pretty good success getting buyers into homes. Yeah, you've been crushing it.
Yeah, you get, I mean, it's not a ton of time, but you at least get the weekend to think about all the houses you saw.
Yeah.
You see some on Friday, Saturday, you think about it Sunday, you make a decision Monday.
Yeah, it's not like I need an answer before you close your car door.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I've done a few of those and those were pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, and then you get people that are, coming from out of state. They're like, I don't care. I just want that house. And they're buying it sight unseen. And we're doing, video tours and things like that. But you're always kind of holding your breath when they come and see it for the first time.
Right. Like, did you make the right decision?
Right.
Say yes.
Right. Yeah. All right. So from Michael Kiefreiter, he is another real estate agent out of state. How does the number of buyers for a property compare to January of this year?
It goes back to, like you said, the right home can still sell at a fast rate at the right price. If you're the best home in the whole neighborhood, you got updated everything, and you're lower than all the other homes, you'll probably sell in a few days, and you might get multiple offers. What that means, it's probably not going to be 20.
Right.
It might be at the most right now I've seen is 3 or 4, which is still pretty high, you know, but it gives us a lot of breathing room where we can look through the offers. We don't have our phones ringing 80 times a day. Did you get my offer? Did you get my offer? Are you signing this? Going back and forth.
So you're saying there's fewer buyers out there right now than there was maybe in January?
It's hard to say. There's still a lot of buyers out there. It's just hard to say where they're going, especially as more homes come on the market. So you're not seeing the same buyer at the same home every time that you go out. So you might be, because people are more reserved to what they're looking at. Like, we have a couple of buyers right now who are looking specifically in one area, or they're looking in one county, versus back in January, it was kind of like, just give me a home.
Give me something
in this general vicinity of 100 miles.
Give me 4 walls and a roof.
Yeah, right.
And if I have to assemble it myself, I'm cool with that. So yeah, I mean, I think we are seeing buyer traffic drop a little bit. I know that on most of the listings that we have active right now, we're getting 2 to 3 showings per week. We're having to do some price reductions to kind of come back down to that market level. But yeah, so we're not seeing multiple offers right now. Although we did, we dropped the price on one house last week and we got 2 offers.
You got 2.
Right.
Same day.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we are still seeing multiple offers when the buyers see that home falls into the category that they feel like that house should be priced at, right? Because, let's be honest, most buyers and most sellers have access to almost all of the information that we have access to now, right? So when buyers are seeing all of the homes that are coming on the market, if you're overpriced, they're going to know pretty quickly.
Yep.
Right. And that's just going to translate into fewer people coming through your house, maybe a lower sales price, that sort of thing. And also from Michael Kiefreiter, how would you describe the impact of rising interest rates from the beginning of 2022? I think we kind of talked about that already.
Right. With the rising interest rates, it's more just your buying power.
Right.
That's all it really is, now you can afford a lot less, and so can everybody else. And it's not just you, it's everybody in the world right now.
Yeah. Also from Michael, I hear the market is slowing down. What exactly does that mean? I think we kind of covered that too.
Sure.
More homes are on the market because the buyer's buying power has eroded enough that there aren't as many buyers for each home
Now
comes on there.
with that and your 19 years of experience, is this still one of the fastest markets for you?
Still, yeah. Honestly, I mostly represent sellers right
Sure.
now, and so I'm enjoying this market. I mean, I've had to dust off a lot of the things that I used to
Sure.
say to sellers about, hey, this is why we need to do this price reduction, and I use tools like Trend Graphics, just show it visually. This is what's happening when you see that inventory going up, at like a 75-degree angle. Like that's a pretty rapidly changing market. You look over the last few years and it's kind of doing this,
Right.
Between like 0.2 and 0.6 months worth of inventory, depending on what you're looking at. Now, all of a sudden it's just taken off like a jet plane. Right. So it's pretty powerful. And most sellers, when you sit down and you explain to them, this is what happened, right? Like,
right.
I'm not saying that your house is worth less, and what we need to do is we need to attract those buyers to come in and take a look at it.
Yeah.
So, and really there's two things that we can control: price and condition, right? If there's not anything that the seller's willing to do about condition, then we have to focus on price. Because when we look back at what's been going on Redfin or Zillow or on our website or wherever, we can show that thousands of people are actually seeing that home, and typically hundreds of people are actually clicking through to look at that home in detail.
Oh yeah.
But that's translating into 5 in-person showings.
Sure.
Right? So we need to get those showings up to get more chance of an offer. And really the only thing that we can do is either change the condition or drop the price.
Right. Or
right.
If you want to spend $100,000 on a new kitchen, go for it.
Yeah. If you want to put in granite countertops or quartz countertops and, put a stupid patio extension on or whatever, like I did last year, which I love, by the way, that can be a good thing. And people always ask me, well, what's the best thing that I can do to increase the value of my home? Add square footage.
Right.
Beyond that, you're not going to get back what you put into the home to remodel that kitchen or bathroom. And if you're going to remodel anything, focus on the kitchen and bathroom, because that's where people make their decision about buying that home. So I always tell people, if I add air conditioning, will that help me sell? And we used to laugh in Washington, but now it's becoming more and more common. And I would tell them, if you're planning to be there for the next 2 or 3 years, you're absolutely going to get some enjoyment out of that. And it's going to help your home sell faster when it sells. But if you're going to put it in to put your home on the market, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get back what you put into it to do that.
You're looking for that one dude from Arizona to be like, thank you.
Yes.
Found it.
Yep. And then the last couple of questions that we had: should I buy now or should I sell now, or wait, and why? And I think we kind of covered a lot of that too, about why it's an opportunity right now for buyers and why sellers maybe need to be a little bit more patient.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about buying is it's always a great time to buy, just because it's more about when can you afford to buy?
Right.
Could you afford to, a lot of people, I wish I could have bought in 2008. It's like, well, could you even afford to buy back then?
Right.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now I bought in 2019 and now homes are going down and I feel like it was a crap. No. Could you afford to buy now? Oh, okay. Maybe not. Or before that.
Right.
Okay. Maybe not. That was, so now you're in the game. You're in the club. I always say to my new buyers, welcome to the club. You're kind of got your foot in the door and you can make a little bit of money off of this.
Yeah. And I think, people will always ask me, well, do I need to sell this house to buy my next house? And I will tell them, like, if you don't need to sell it, don't sell it.
Right.
Like, if you can hold on to that, and we can have a whole new episode about, the benefits of owning, rental real estate. Absolutely. I wish my first house that I had bought, I wish I still had it.
Right.
I sold it for $250,000 back in 2006 to buy our current home. Now it's worth probably $440,000, $450,000.
Oh, wow.
And I could have been getting rent and all the tax benefits for the last 15 years.
Or just even the appreciation if you just sat on it.
So, yeah. I mean, so that would have been that would have been a beautiful hindsight move, is to keep
Right.
that house.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. Well, I don't see any more comments. We don't have any more questions here. Anything else that you want to say before?
Nothing else. I did want to promote something, or if you want to take it over.
Oh, go ahead.
There are cash flow game night.
Oh yeah, cash flow game night. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So here at Altitude, we run a great little game every month called Cash Flow Game Night by Robert Kiyosaki. Just teaching about, like we were talking about, rentals and stuff like that, just managing money and how that works in the real world, putting it into a fun little Monopoly game. This game was created, 10 something years ago?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably more than that. Probably like 15. But yeah.
So it just kind of breaks down into almost Monopoly terms of how rising interest rates work and buying properties and how you can make money off of that. So we host that here every month.
Yep. And that will be tomorrow night. We need a couple more people to sign up.
Yep.
If you go to altitudehomes.com/events, you can find all of our events and register for that there. And so really it kind of teaches you how to understand what passive income could be in your life. So, the idea of wake up money. So, what if you had enough money to do whatever you wanted to do that day just by waking up and getting out of bed, right? That changes your trajectory a little bit. When you think about, I don't have to go do the 9 to 5. You can still go do the 9 to 5 if you want to. And if you didn't have to, you might make different decisions.
Right.
So it's kind of an introduction to that. And like you said, it's kind of Monopoly on crack.
Yeah.
So I kind of call it like Monopoly in the game of life together, but with like actual real life situations that you'd run into. So, all right. Well, let's see. Will we be emailing a summary? I don't know where we'd email it to. It honestly doesn't even tell us who most of you are. So, but this will be available on our YouTube channel, and it'll be available on all of these places on Facebook that we're streaming right now. So you can go back and watch it anytime you want.
And we'll be back. This is not a one-time.
We will be back. So we would like you guys to let us know, like, what can we do for you guys? What are the questions that you have? What are some of the other topics that you want us to cover? This is fun, and I think it went pretty well. And that's it.
Hasta la pasta.
Hasta lasagna. All right, guys, everybody have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you.